So pleased to be here, Pranic family. So glad to be a part of this community and be connected with all of you truth seekers and pioneers in, living the highest potential uh, that we can, you know, live here in this little samsaric realm. So, um, I will try to speak slowly. I tend to get excited and speak quickly, so I'll try to measure my pace here. But yes, my name is Jesse Boudreau. Uh, I do have French heritage on my father's side, just to corroborate that. uh, and I am a permaculturalist and herbalist in northern New Mexico, and I've been called to the pranic lifestyle since around 2010, which is when I sort of started my journey of deep self-care and um, started practicing sungazing, meditation, working with raw foods, grounding and fasting at that time. And for the last 7 years, I've been liquidarian, and the last three, I've been dry fasting 23 hours a day and juicing for an hour. So that's kind of where I am in my development. I feel like I could be further along in it, but I live a very conventional life. I have a family. They all eat meat, and I run a landscaping business and stuff. So I part of that keeps me rooted and grounded. I have clay feet, and that makes it, this uh, this process. The main thing is making the mental leap, uh, but the body has to and the mind all have to come along together. And so when you see people going through the realities and the struggles and dealing with the uh, situations that we all face, that helps us, because we got to be able to take it away from the pranic retreat and live it in our lives, right? So what I'd like to share today, this is of course my favorite subject in the world, so I'm going to do my very best to um, uh, not go all over the place. But what I'd like to talk about are uh, what I see to be the five limbs of breatharian practice, as well as um, four elements practice, and love as a 0 point energy, and if possible, some things about Bigu Taoist practice. Yes, Morgan. Okay. She's saying yay. Okay. All right. So, and we'll save questions for the end. Obviously, I normally like to have my classes be more interactive and get a bead on what you all want most, but we'll try to address any questions at the end. So with respect to the five limbs practice, because I know you all have been getting a lot of this over the course of the retreat, but to sort of direct the mind away from not eating and put it more on energy cultivation practices. So that's what I see to be the first limb, is energy cultivation. And of course, there are many forms of energy cultivation. That's going to be things like meditation, Qi Gong, yoga, sun gazing, grounding. Um, it also comes into relationship, and relationships, that being attentive to relationships that feed us, and activities that feed us. So that could be, say you're a musician and you love playing music, but your 9 to 5, you have to go do something else. Make sure that you play music, because it's important in feeding your soul. It's a vibration of nourishment, to do the things that you love and to chase the things that you love is kind of where I'm going to go with all of this, because that's what I find is like, as you develop in a pranic lifestyle, it's like um, you're source feeding on love, and you can't really, it's too much of an energetic draw to source feed on stress and frustration and, you know, all these other things. And they're, of course, going to naturally come up in our life. But to be able to reorient and navigate from that consciousness of love and to gravitate through our inner guides toward love. So, energy cultivation is, all that and more. And all of these different limbs actually kind of tie together as one thing. But, to have a discipline and a habit of, getting out and getting in touch with the sun every day, getting in touch with the earth, getting some breath work in, and, just taking that care to cultivate your energy and clear the energetic channels, and, have that clarity of thought by connecting into your source, actively listening to your inner guides, because we always know exactly what's best for us. We just don't always do what's best for us. So, following your higher self is the key, I feel like. So, there's the energy cultivation aspect. The other one, the next one I would say is sexual temperance. That your sexual fluids are like your cerebral spinal fluid. It's part of the Kundalini energy. It's like in Ayurveda, they talk about your cerebral spinal fluid and your seminal fluid, or your sexual fluid, being the ojas, which is like this waxy kind of fatty substance. And that's, something I want to get into too here in a moment, of like nutrition and as part of the way towards pranic lifestyle, towards pranic living. And that's one of the things would be to develop this ojas so that you recirculate it. The more it recirculates, the more it refines and the better it gets. But you can also nourish it, with good oils and things like nuts and seeds, so being attentive to that, because I think that's really overlooked in the conversation about chronic living. Sort of the results is that you need less food or no food at all. But if you have depleted your oils, you've depleted yourself, and you need to, use plants as prana and to rebuild, and then work from there, I feel. And it's just, we want to make sure that the whole mind frame of what we're doing is one of self-care and self-love, and not deprivation or, those kinds of things. So that sexual temperance, that also goes into like your creative works, because the Kundalini energy and that sexual energy is your creative energy for all things, for creating, businesses, for creating art, creating music, creating families. And we are creators, not consumers. So that's, nourishing this creative potential within us and honoring it. The Egyptians had this amazing practice where they would take an acolyte, a young adept, and work them through the right eye of Horus Mystery School and the left eye of, actually I forget which one is which, but there's the feminine and the masculine. And you would be celibate and that time, and you learn to manipulate your kundalini energy. And the ankh is a representation of that energy being conducted back into the body to be able to reverberate. And if you can do that, it's after your training of like 20 years, you would couple with another adept and recirculate this cosmic kundalini life force energy between you, and it's supposed to lead to endless life, long life. And it's just that reverberation. If you hit an ankh or use it like a tuning fork, it will reverberate almost endlessly because of its design. And that's a reflection of our body. And this sexual energy, you know, can move in us like that. We usually blast it out of our head because we're so oversexed culturally, especially in the West. But, you know, to refine it and then cultivate it and then to birth a child in that way with your refined oils, that's the purpose, of sex, of course. And we use it mostly for pleasure. And that can be a part, I think, of this process if you get into like the Montauk Chia stuff and learning your body, both men and women, and how to work together instead of, just for your own gratification. So that's a whole, each one of these I could talk for the whole hour on. So I'm trying to be sort of succinct, but that's a very important, maybe it's hard to say which is the most important, but that might be the most important in terms of like honoring your creative power, and it's your life force energy. So so you have the next, I would say, is the diet and fasting, which are part of the same coin, right? Because what we're trying to do is attenuate our bodies to prana and our consciousness to prana, so that, um, as Hilton Hotima talks about, if we have been for millennia culturally eating and in our own personal lives eating for 20, 30, 40 years, you have to taper the body off slowly and be gentle in that process. Because on the one hand, there's the detoxification process, but it's just like, everything, all the food is actually got toxins in it, and what happens, so we eat to live and we eat to die. And this bioaccumulation of toxins is what creates disease, that and the blockages in our energy bodies or in our mind. So to just like someone who is addicted to opiates, if you took them off right away, they could die, instantly. So you want to take your time with this process and move yourself slowly toward prana. So everything is this sine wave. Your breath is a sine wave, right? In breath and an out breath. Fasting and refeeding is a sine wave, right? So, and as you go over time, you can attenuate this instead of having these big fluctuations of like, I'm hungry and then I eat, and then I'm hungry. You can get to just like this little, I'm sort of hungry and I'm gonna have a little bit, and so, but it takes adapting the body there. It's the body's vital adaptation, is what Hilton Hotima talks about. That's why you can adjust to poison and take poison. And in herbalism, all of the herbs we use, the phytochemistry is essentially poison that is enacting a balancing of something that's going on in your body. So I'm going to get a little bit more into that in a little bit. It's so hard for me to not like go deep into each one of these and tie it all together all at once, but I'm trying to keep it kind of in different sections, because there's the whole elemental theory of earth, wind, fire, and water that I'm going to get into a little bit, and balancing through the elemental understanding and actually working with the physical elements too. So you have energy cultivation, you have sexual temperance or sexual energy cultivation, you have diet and refeeding. And of course, the fruits are going to be the most pranic, most, biophotonic, most astringent, water rich, and we're beings primarily of water, not primarily of earth. And so restructuring that water, taking the time to do the juicing, with the fresh fruits and drinking the spring water, creating structured waters is, going to be a massive part of like getting your body and consciousness over to the light more, you know, in my experience. I'm like trying to not, it's so hard because that delves into the whole thing of the water. But anyways, so the the diet and fasting, and of course, there's also the levels, and I'm sure everyone's already aware of that, of like the tamasic foods, like your fast food and your processed food, that's sprayed and chemicalized, and then there's your rajasic food that's going to be more rich and like meats and all that, and then there's the more pranic foods that are going to be more ahimsa, non-violent foods, the vegetarian, vegan, raw vegan, fruitarian, and in that journey you may find that you have to go a little bit back and forth, and allow yourself, give yourself permission for that, for your body to make this vital adjustment, so that you don't, because as far as you go in one way, I know this is just from my experience, like my long dry fast, I went back and ate more afterwards, and I found, as Ellie Thomas taught me, it's better to find something you can do consistently, easily, and build over time, than it is to do like these monster dry fasts, go do 20 days or whatever, and then go back to your normal habits, so you want to work yourself there, gently, carefully, and give yourself permission to, go back into the density, and then back into the light, and the density and the light. And it'll also help you stay grounded and connected. It'll help you stay grounded and connected in your body, but also with like your family and your community. So, just think not to have shame around eating in this, this lifestyle, because there's this valuing of getting to that goal of food freedom, right? So we want to get there, but there's also higher values that we should think of, like love and compassion, connection, and that's actually going to speed our way, to that state. So, and then the fourth one I think of as, I said, relationships as part of sort of energy cultivation, but I see it as one of the limbs as well, because relationship, this whole existence in this reality is about relationship, and you want to develop good relationships, and you want to nurture relationships, and some of us have trouble with human relationships. Some of us have a lot of damage and trauma around human relationships. And I just want to put forth a note that you can always connect with the plants and the animals, and that we have a family and relationship with them, and that we should, seek those relationships that feed us and abstain from the ones that drain us, you know. So, and at the same time, it's like developing that mentality of loving kindness towards everyone, and letting go. I like what Ram Dass says, is that we should increase our caring and decrease our attachment. To always try to care more for other beings and for yourself, but always be less attached to the outcome. And even with the pranic process, this is a process of caring for yourself, you know, and that should be the focus. And the result may be that you can release food, but don't be attached to that. Be more focused on caring about yourself and caring about your world and your land and your community and all the beings around you. Uh, that's been very helpful to me. I just feel like that's what we're here to do. um, but that loving relationships thing, you can't avoid it, and you have to create boundaries around your needs in caring for yourself. And in this lifestyle, that's often what shows up, is people confronting you with fear and doubt, or you know or um, discouraging you with judgment and so forth. And learning to let that roll off your shoulders, and realizing that's something that someone else is dealing with, and their fears and not your own. And learning to make those sort of distinctions and create boundaries for your growth is a whole process, to just learn. We don't really get taught it very well. I really love what the Dalai Lama says. He says, what if we taught children to meditate and identify their emotions, and then non-violently communicate them? What we would have is adults that could do that, you know? So I think that's a practice that, you know, I think that's even more important possibly than, the pranic lifestyle. Pranic lifestyle, though, is, about longevity and freedom, and that enables this whole thing. So that all feeds into each other. So, and then, yeah, alongside of that, I guess, the last limb I would say is joy practice, you know, uh, which is just to follow your joy and do things that you love, because I don't know how many people I talk to who, are just like, oh yeah, I used to really want to be an artist. I did it in college, and, and then I had a family and, work, and things got carried away, and now I almost never do it. And it's like, I like what Wayne Dyer says. He says, don't die with your music inside you. That you you might not be able to do the thing that you love as a profession, but you need to do it anyway, you know. So that's been very helpful to me, just to, practice things that I love doing. And this life is meant to be enjoyed, and so longevity is great if you're enjoying your life. But if you're not enjoying your life, then longevity is a curse, right? So it's important to develop all these things, because I know myself anyways, and other people I've talked to can get so fixated on, releasing food, that you stop having fun. And you got to remember to have fun. It's supposed to be fun. So um, those are the main limbs of practice, I think, that if you can concentrate on daily, giving energy to, in some way, uh, you'll naturally develop in this way. If every day you're paying attention to your, nutrition, hydration, and working with fasting consistently, that's going to help you hugely. If you work on meditation, Qi Gong, energy, cultivation, sungazing, those things every day, that's going to massively help you. If you just, if you honor that creative energy and you follow your joy and you do all these things, it seems simple, and we all know this already, but to reiterate and to refocus the mind and practice, because the outside world is always trying to pull us into, it's mostly our senses, our five senses get drawn into all the things that are happening outside of us, and to remember to reorient into our inner experience, that really the juiciness of this world is in our inner experience. And that's also how we affect the reality vibrate and create new realities, from that place inside. So that's I really long for my forest years. I'm, still in my householder years, and I enjoy it, but it's still very stressful, still very trying, and I look forward to being able to be food free and be in the forest and meditate all day, every day, and just hike and wander, and you know, so it's also good to hold on to that dream of your uh, highest realization, your highest joy, and move toward it. Um, though you might not be able to experience it in the moment, don't think of it as not coming. Just uh, think of yourself as moving toward it slowly. There's a Zen saying that enlightenment is like walking in the mist. Eventually, you'll get wet. You know, so eventually we will all get to the pranic life. We will all become enlightened. It's foretold by the Buddhas that in the fourth age, in the coming age, we'll all be liberated, and we'll all be free, full Buddhas. So that's what I'm moving toward, and I know you all are too. uh, so that from there, I want to move into the four elements practice a little bit, and it's just because it's my joy, and it's been a huge part of my process in pranic lifestyle, is just acknowledging and connecting with the elements of earth, wind, fire, and water every day. And that uh, the name Jehovah is actually Yod He Bad He, the Hebrew for earth, wind, fire, and water. And in herbalism, this is something that is across all cultures, whether it's Native American, Greek, Tibetan, Ayurveda, Chinese, all over the world. People had this understanding and interaction with the elements of earth, wind, fire, and water. And you can sort of think of them in modern terms as liquid, solid, energy, and gas. But it's also in our bodies, it's in the plants, it's the elements all around us, the sun, the air, the water, the earth beneath us. And so to make a sort of a conscious connection with those elements daily is a really fun, really juicy way to um, feel embodied and ennobled by them. So every day I walk barefoot on the earth. The other earth element would be what you're consuming, you know, uh, even if it's, just juices and herbs like I'm doing. Those are all herbs of the earth, they have that connection. And the whole thing of this being an electric life, right? So we need that ground. We got to stay grounded. A lot of people who get into even just raw foods will get way too vata, way too much air element going on, and feel ungrounded and anxious. And so, that can be very important, that earth element in this pranic practice. And then connection with the water every day, even if you're dry fasting, to sit by the water, to, if you're not hardcore about hard dry fasting, take a bath, uh, take a shower, or, jump in a river or something, that whole just connecting with the water element. Um, and, um, and then the fire, the sun, get the sun on the skin, get out in the sun, get the sun in your eyes, you know, as Ellie Tom calls us, is, the solar breatharian journey. That's really what it is we eat the sun. When we clean out this vessel, that we're just ensconced in this cosmic energy of the sun. And that's the predominant energy. And that's appropriate because right now we're in Leo season. That sun connects with our heart, and this vibration of love I want to talk about in a little bit. The fire inside your heart. There's the toroidal field emanates from your heart center, and it's a singularity. So it's actually every cell, your heart, the planet, the sun, all have this singularity, the galaxy, and this toroidal field that ensconces it. Um, and that's something I want to move into in the next little piece here, is about this heart connection vibration. That's truly who we are, is heart beings. That's the first organ that forms, and your heart is this electromagnetic field that organizes all the other electromagnetic fields of all the other organs in your body. So in Chinese tradition, in medicine, they call heart the emperor, and their word for mind is heart mind. That they believe this is actually where your mind is in your chest, you know. And Drunvalo Melchizedek talks about that we got to move out of our heads and into our hearts, because the head is judgment, should I, shouldn't I, good, bad, etc. Where your heart is a place of knowing and compassion and courage. So that's that fire element, connecting with the sun. For me, the practice of sun gazing, totally, I had like 3 or 4 really powerful experiences in my life that were like life changing. One was my first psychedelic experience with psilocybin mushrooms in the forest, of just total connectivity with everything. Another was in sort of tantric union with my partner. Another was seeing my children be born. And then finally, after developing the sun gazing practice up to 45 minutes, I had this total cosmic bliss experience where I felt my fontanelle and my crown chakra open up and the pranic channel open up, and I was part of the sun, and I was part of the earth, and all the birds and everything around me was like this song of vibration and connection, and it was profound. I was crying, each one of these experiences, so those are that's kind of what attracts me personally to the pranic lifestyle. Is I think that we can, through these practices, develop a continuity of that bliss union experience, and that's truly the goal. Not to not eat food, but to have that union bliss experience in continuity. So the fire element, and then the air element, of course, we're breatharians, right? Everyone's a breatharian already, just to mention that, and it's just how the different kinds of prana your body has been accustomed to. We've been more accustomed to solid, you know, prana in the form of food of the earth, but we're part earth beings and part sky beings. That's why we have our feet on the ground and our head in the sky. And our head and our hair, just like electroculture, gathers this cosmic energy, and the ground of the earth, uh, you know, is this flow. We're actually just like a conduit for this energy. So the breath, though, is how we clear the energetic channels, and you, of course, anyone could go quite a long time without food, as Ray Muir talks about. No one can, a lot of people can go many days without water, but try to go a few minutes without breath, and see how well you do. You'll pass out and your body will start breathing for you, because it's such the vital component of life. And the yogis talk about, developing the breath such that, there were adepts supposedly in the past that one in breath was like a millennia and one out breath was like a millennia. And imagine us getting into that place, and that the lungs are like the flapping of a butterfly's wings, and that there's only so many flaps. And so when you're anxious and and you're like huffing and puffing, or you're like overexerting yourself, that's so many breaths. So the more we can calm and regulate our nervous system through the breath and practice with the breath, the more all this just happens naturally. It's probably the number one, uh, you know, thing you can connect with to develop yourself, in all ways. So yeah, that air element, but getting also into good quality air, get by the ocean or by a river or up in the mountains where there's lots of negative ions, so you can get good breath, or get a HEPA filter in your house, or keep a fan going so that the air is stirred and clean. you know um, Even like Hilton Hotima talks about, even if you live in cold places in the winter, leave your window open and just put on more blankets, because it's more important that you get good breath. Um, so just to have that awareness and attention and connection with the breath and the air element. And then water too, like we talked about before a little bit, the structured water of fruits, and springs, or you can take your filtered water and put crystals or flowers into it, or write intentions on the bottle, of these different ways to structure the water so that that is structured into you. um, and Gosh, I'm not gonna have enough time to talk about all the things I want to talk about. I kind of talked a little bit about the heart. um, all right, so I'll kind of wrap it up a little bit so we can get to questions. But this whole thing, the other thing I wanted to talk about, of course, as I mentioned, was that I sort of touched on, was this whole thing of this heart vibration, and that you being a being of love, that this is our true essence and nature, and this is the essence of the world. There's something that through our herbalism classes, we love to share this concept of pronoia rather than paranoia, that the universe is conspiring in your favor and not against you. And when you learn the plants, you learn that almost everything is food or medicine, you know. And when you see, these elements are, all supporting us, and if you're, it's a matter of our vibration, our reflection. There's interesting stories, connecting to sort of the relationship thing. There was this lady in Russia who everyone thought she was a witch, because she would go out in the forest and people would come upon her, and she would have like a deer and a raven and a raccoon and stuff just chilling out with her, under a tree or something. And it was just her, she just had a loving connection with the animals, you know, and just liked them. And they would come into her house. And there's this whole idea that there's, from our Darwinistic culture, that it's dog eat dog out there, and the animals are all trying to eat each other all the time, and all this stuff. But they've actually taken some footage, with those cameras that get tripped by a sensor at night, and there'll be like mountain lions and deer like walking around together, and like they go into that mode when they're in their hunger and their base animal needs, and there's an agreement, I think, on this plane between all of us, that I'll be food for the earth one day. I'll be the food for the worms, um, or a tigress or whatever it is, and vice versa, But even still, I think that's our job as, in the Buddhist perspective, the fact that we have won a human birth is a rare opportunity uh, to develop higher consciousness, and that we are the stewards of this planet. We are the gardeners of the planet, and that that's the vibration of it. It's this loving kindness, and then we can move into this uh, uh, awareness of loving kindness by looking for glimmers. You know, People talk about their triggers all the time, and it's a matter of what you focus on. What you focus on is what your reality becomes. And um, you can always look for the bad and see it, and you can always look for the good and see it. So looking for the glimmers, looking for the little places to rejoice in people being kind to one another. Even if you just see, that's a Buddhist practice, you see a couple people, holding hands, smiling, walking down the street, rejoice in that. Um, you see an animal, um, being kind to another animal, rejoice in that. Like, just find these. If you start looking for it, you'll see that love is everywhere. And I believe this is a 0 point energy. I think this is actually the main thing in the breatharian lifestyle is connecting, you know, sky and earth. And that happens in the heart. This is the place, the meeting point between sky and earth, between the opposites. And uh, this whole thing of, I'm sure you've all experienced maybe a feeling of being in love or having a conversation that was just so much fun and it's just so juicy that you're not even thinking about eating. It's just not even on your mind, you know. And usually we eat out of a place of like craving and need, you know. And when you realize that you are complete, that you are love, that is, I think, the moment when you truly become a breatharian or a Buddha. To me, it's more about an awakening, you know, an awakening of loving kindness, in our hearts. And freedom and joy and bliss are a result, but it's through this development, of ourselves and consciously developing a loving heart and extending that to other people, and especially in this post-COVID world where there's been so much separation ideation. We need to reunify and remember that we are one human family, and that we have a responsibility to our other brothers and sisters of the plants and animals on this earth, and that there's a great joy to be had, a great family reunion that's coming. So anyway, that's my thing on that. I wanted to talk a little bit about Bigu state and herbs for that, but that's probably another 30. So the last bit I wanted to share about was Bigu state, which those of you who aren't familiar with it, it's just breatharianism. It's the Taoist herbalist. That's how I first came into knowledge of breatharianism, was studying herbalism and in Chinese traditional herbalism in the Gentle Farmer's Materia Medica, which is like the ancient, herbalism resource for Chinese traditional medicine. They start off the book talking about the Bigu state, which is a state of extreme long life with very little need to eat, if any, being never being sick, never being subject to hot or cold, that your body learns to adapt. And these Taoist adepts used to live in the mountains, meditating, doing Qi Gong, and working with these herbs that are like the superior herbs of the world. So in the Taoist or the Chinese traditional medicinal view, there's the herbs of earth, the herbs of man, and the herbs of heaven. And the herbs of earth would be things like maybe like comfrey or even something like spinach, that like comfrey is really great for knitting bones. Like if you break a bone, you can, do a compress, or you can take tea internally, and it's super mineral rich and it will help rebuild bones really well. But if you do it for too long, it's so mineral rich that you'll start to develop kidney stones, and it'll start to like slowly sort of crystallize your body, right? So that's not something you can sustain. I mentioned spinach because spinach has the oxalates, and oxalates can be problematic if you get too much of them. Same with like, a lot of the brassicas have goitrogens that inhibit your thyroid functioning, and your hormones and stuff. So those things you can eat and work with, but you wouldn't want to do it all the time. Then there's the herbs of man, and that's going to be things maybe more like dandelion or violet, that are good food herbs. They're going to detox. They're going to like drain the lymphatic system. They're going to mineralize, do good things, you know. But it's more kind of like food, you know. And then there's the herbs of heaven, and that's going to be things more like ginseng and reishi and tulsi basil and the adaptogens that are food, you know, grade. You could eat them every day and it wouldn't be contraindicated, wouldn't affect you negatively, but they're actually going to tonify different organ systems or different, you know, or like your immune system, your nervous system, you know. And those are the herbs that I've been concentrating on and working with over the last, you know, 14 years that have really, I think, helped advance me along into breatharianism. Because um, most herbs, this whole thing of earth, wind, fire, and water, and elemental theory, the herbs have different thermal constitutions, as do we. We have different amalgamations of earth, wind, fire, and water. So in Ayurveda, that's like, you know, the kapha, pitta, vata. So kapha is earth and water, and that tends to be like your more heavy set, dark complected, maybe slow moving. The pitta body type is more like your athletic, you know, medium build. And then vata is going to be tall, thin, you know, sort of graceful. And there's different aspects of mind with the different dosha types too. And so I'm pitta. I'm a triple Aries. I'm, you know, a gardener. I'm very athletic, and I need more. I'm also kind of type A. Like I need more nerving, calming herbs, and herbs that are cooling, especially since I live in the desert. Also, you know, so it comes to environment. You know, so you can work with herbs and foods and stuff that are going to balance for your environment, your time of year, and your dosha type. Um, so things like, for instance, chili, you know, or ginger or garlic, those are going to be very fiery, you know, pungent foods that are going to increase circulation, increase that yang and that activity, digestive fire, etc. Things like cucumber or aloe or watermelon are going to be more cooling and demulcent and moving more towards that. So I just want to explain that quickly before moving on to the whole thing of the herbs of heaven, and because there are going to be different thermal natures and they're going to affect like the yin and yang in you differently, you know, because we all have yin and yang, and that's the other part of this, is balancing the whole thing of the kundalini energy, the whole thing of, you know, the heart, the sky and the earth. All these things are just, we're trying to get all these opposites, they're naturally in union, but we're trying to have that experience of the union and the balance, you know. So you may have too much yang, you need to bring more yin in. So these herbs of heaven, that's the only thing you have to be sort of aware of when you're working with them, is that some are going to like increase yang, some are going to maybe make you colder at certain, like Siberian ginseng. I'm sorry, Korean ginseng or red ginseng is a really great herb, but it's more warming. So you might not want it in the summer in Italy during a heat wave, you know, for instance. Gosh, yeah, I'm trying to make this as complete and as short as possible because it's kind of complicated. The other thing is the three treasures in Chinese traditional medicine that you're trying to nurture that will urge you into this Bigu state. And that's Jing, Qi, and Shun. So your Jing is like your genetic fortitude. It like tends to reside in your kidneys. It has to do with your longevity. It's likened to the wax of a candle. The Qi, which we're always talking about in the pranic lifestyle, is the fire or the ATP or the energy or electricity um, that's burning, you know, and then, or the flame of the candle. And then Shun is your spirit or like the light that comes off the candle. And so red ginseng and other herbs like reishi, and there's a few, I think, astragalus too is coupled in there that nurture all three um, treasures. You know, so there's this whole list of herbs. They're going to be things like Hoshu Wu and Shizandra and goji berry. Goji berry is a great one for pranic practitioners to work in because goji berry nourishes the blood and the qi. The qi resides in the blood. So, you know, you're working with these herbs that ennoble you, but they're also like, uh, things that are adaptogenic. So they're going to help you deal with stress because that's the number one thing. I mean, I keep saying that's the number one thing, but a huge thing in this lifestyle is like mitigating stress and being able to redirect and channel the stresses around you skillfully. So it's not a wear and tear on your energy body, you know. Um, so we're developing a strong energy body through these practices, through connecting with, the four elements, through, the five limbs of breatharian practice, strengthening, but and then these herbs can also ennoble and strengthen, but then all of this practice will also help you to just manage and bob and weave through the difficulties of life, and I notice, uh, dry fasted, I have so much more ease in like just running through challenges and things that come up. And it's like, okay, well, let's just fix this, and then, um, but it's taken a while to get there. And at first, I needed that boundary, like I said before, around that practice to be able to just be at home, just like read books, and so that's a whole aside. But working with these herbs can really, I find, uh, enable this practice greatly. And you'll be called to certain herbs, and there's ones that are better for men and ones that are better for women. There's a lot of things that do well for them, like uh, pyoria root and white atractylodes and pearl powder and things that are a little bit different. But then there's a lot of those other herbs like will be beneficial for you too. And then men can work with herbs to sort of build testosterone, because we're all also challenged. Our endocrine systems are all challenged by plastics in the environment, atrazine, glyphosate, all these petrochemicals and things that our endocrine system has to process. And that, their hormones in your endocrine system basically really, really make you feel either great or terrible, inside. So we want to be able to balance. So men, it's really good to work with uh, elk antler tincture, and that's like they don't harvest the elk; they harvest the elk will go and rub their antlers on the trees and stuff because it irritates, and they rub it off, and they'll leave these big tufts, and they gather that stuff up and they tincture it, and also pine pollen, and those are great ways that will sort of like build jing and build testosterone, um, and women need testosterone too, um, and that's actually things like pine pollen, especially in the whole food form and not a tincture form, can be very balancing for women uh, for the whole progesterone, testosterone, estrogen vignette. So I really just want to encourage people to work with herbs, to realize that there's this adage from Chinese traditional medicine that medicine is not as good as food, and food is not as good as qi. You know, so that if we have our diet dialed in, we won't really need medicine. We can use a lot of these herbs of heaven, you know, as daily foods, um, and our fasting refeeding to nurture this state. So I think that's all I wanted to cover there. I could go on, but maybe I'll wait for questions to guide me.
Thank you. I just thank you
Hi.
very much. I'm very, very pleased to hear what you said. It touched me deeply. Because it's very, how can I, anyway, anyway, I'm very, very pleased, very happy. I wanted to know if you organized the 21 days program or more or less, how you do. And if you do it, if you go through dry period or anyway, if you can just enlighten me on that. Thank you.
Thank you for the kind words. I appreciate. That's sweet. And I see what a sweet heart you have and what a bright smile. And that's the stuff that touches me. I love connecting with the people. Um uh I haven't I put myself through my own process. I haven't what appeals to me is what Ellie Tom talks about is like make your process like a 180-day process, you know, because I think of it more 30 to 90, but anything you can do 30 to 90 days, you can do as a lifestyle, you know, and to think of it more as a lifestyle. We are Jerome Shaw and Nabiha and I are going to be putting on our first Pranic retreat in October, which is going to be a lot of fun here in New Mexico at my place. And it's just going to be a 5-day retreat. And we're going to encourage people to fast at whatever level they're comfortable with. And we'll just have juices available, you know, for them. We're going to, if people want to have other food, they'll have to, you know, source that and deal with that. But we're going to, you know, do a day in the woods, forest bathing and talking about herbs. We're going to do Qi Gong and writing and painting and play music. And it's going to be a lot of fun. It's, you know, our version. I wish I could be there with you all in person so much. It's as a gardener, my humble means haven't been able to afford me to fly out there the last 2 years. But one day I hope to make it. But this is going to be our version, our little American version over here of a Pranic retreat. And I hope to build it, you know, to the point, or maybe even in combination uh, with Eden, you know, here in the States, just because we need some representation over here for people who are interested. Um, but yeah, I hope that kind of answers your question.
Awesome. We'll talk, Jesse. I
That
might
sounds
be
great.
in California in October. So let's talk.
Cool.
And also, I have a question about how people get a hold of you, but we'll talk about that at the end. So maybe there's a link that we can share with the group here as well. But I have a question about, you mentioned structured water. Are you talking only about fruit juices, or are you structuring water with some kind of technology?
Oh, so there's so many fun ways to play with the water right now. You know, I really feel like the living water from fruits is the best. I feel like it has their intelligence. It's also this thing of getting added hydrogen. As you all probably know, that fruits have H3O2. There are machines and things that can uh, make hydrogen water for you, and I would highly suggest that, because the other thing about this in developing our chronic bodies is that if you develop that exclusion zone water that surrounds every cell in your body with structured water, that exclusion zone water, it's a fourth phase of water. It's like a liquid crystal jelly. And there's a positive charge on one side and a negative charge on the other. So that really actually makes the battery more efficient if you can, you know. But there's also, you know, vortexing water. Like I said before, you could drop crystals or flowers into it. Intentions, you know, write words on tape like love or whatever, and put it on a bottle. Or just, you know, like I every night before I have break fast on my juices, I'll put prayers and mantras into the juice just with my hands and my words, and that kind of thing. You can also, I think, I think they're making cool, like one thing I have is just what are those called? Little copper wire portion rings, I think are what they're called. And I'll just like put my herbs and stuff in there to gather cosmic energy while they're waiting for me to eat them or drink them. They're all liquid. I still say eat, even though I've been drinking things for 7 years. So, and I think there's other cool technologies out there that are kind of like Devon, the Black Airbender, has the plasma guns, and you could plasma gun your food, and get it, more scalar energy, So there's so many fun ways. It's such a fun thing, It's like just play with it,
Right. Yes. One of your tenets, 5, is joy practice. So have fun with what we're doing. Do we have more questions for Jesse? Yes. This is Diana.
Hello.
Greetings, Diana.
You mentioned something about the sexual energy and with the oils, that you can put different oils on your body to balance them out. So I want, yeah.
Oh yeah, you misunderstood me. What I was saying is that your sexual energy is this oil that circulates in your body. It's this oily substance. So, but you want to nourish those oils. You can, anything you put on your skin, your body absorbs and eats. So that is a very good point, to be aware of what you put on your skin and to work with really good. I use just like shea butter, olive oil, infused with herbs. It's kind of a little bit of a breatharian hack, but especially if you live in a dry place, like I do, you want to feed your skin, so you can feed your skin with like, good oils, coconut oil, jojoba, all those kinds of things infused with nice things like comfrey or plantain or yarrow that will heal your skin. And you can also play with it. Like there's energetic properties to herbs. For instance, yarrow is really good for healing wounds. And the story is Achilles asked the goddess Hera for a herb that would heal all of his soldiers' wounds. And she gave him yarrow, and that's what he was dipped in by the ankle. And it's supposedly on an energetic level, it will heal auric holes and it will keep you protected from people with invasive energy. So, you can use the oils as a carrier for herbs for, protection and stuff like that. But, but yes, eating good oils, feeding your skin good oils, and I really like if you're working with olive oil, buy the expensive stuff, buy the really, really good stuff. I tend to not, at a certain point, after you've developed the oils, you don't need to keep taking oil. You know what I mean? Especially if you're recirculating this Kundalini energy. It's once it's depleted that you have to rebuild it, So, but, you can just play with it that way. Infuse oils, that you can put on your skin, use oils in your cooking, that are super high quality and minimalistically, I would say, a little bit on consumption, so I hope that helps.
So thank you for your answer, but I would still like to know if there is any practice except of taking oils to rebalance the energy.
Well, I think definitely it's this whole thing of like I was talking about, mostly through the talk of just this balancing of internally of the masculine and feminine, and that the breath is huge with that. But you know, some of it comes in, I find personally, in terms of development of the Kundalini energy and this integration of masculine and feminine, is putting myself in like a room full of all women, you know, for instance, and just observing and connecting and trying to think like a woman, you know, and trying to understand where women are coming from and what a woman's heart is like, you know. And then the same thing with the men, you know. And you know, I think we are born, I think we're genderless souls, but then we're born into a gender. And part of that is our learning to understand and integrate this on a soul level in a deeper way, the, you know, connection and the integration between masculine and feminine. So yeah, that whole thing, there's I would check also into Montauk Chia and his sharing and teaching about, you know, sexual energy cultivation. Because yeah, it's kind of a hard question to answer. I think it's with all these things, there's as many ways to it as there are like individuals. Just like playing guitar, there's many different tons of musicians, but everybody like approaches it a little bit different. Or cooking, you know, or art, or, you know, anything really. We all do with our individual way, you know. I think the same is true of like the pranic process and this integration of masculine and feminine within, because we're all coming from different, you know, not only the past from this life, but past life influences that we're trying to understand and balance. And it's sometimes it's beyond this life, and so it feels very, you know, kind of ineffable and confusing. It's like something that is just hard to understand, you know. And I run into that. Like I grew up in a household of women. I mostly surrounded myself with women, and I think sometimes that I understand them, but then I find that that's not true at all. My wife will like totally like, you know, give me a reality check on that, like a lot. And it's so it's a super interesting question, because it's this whole thing of relationship, right? And our fundamental relationships with our father and our mother, these were our archetypes of the masculine and feminine, you know, and how that shapes and forms us. And I think there's pre-life agreements with our parents to form us in that way, for our life learning, for our soul growth. But yeah, it's not a simplistic answer. Love you, family. Love, love, love. So grateful for all of you. Keep shining your beautiful lights.